There's very few Civil War battlefields that you can go to that have the kind of impact that this place has here. April 1865, the Army of Northern Virginia is on the move, and they meet with the Union Army here at Saylor's Creek. At this location, they lose a quarter of their army over the course of this battle. And the battle takes place in 3 different locations. It's really 3 separate engagements that end up culminating in a massive defeat for the Confederate Army, and one that ends up pushing Robert E. Lee to say, "My God, has the Army dissolved?" My God, has the Army dissolved indeed. That's a clip from one of my more popular videos about Saylor's Creek that we did, I want to say it was about a year ago. And the reason why I put that clip in there is because we're going to be talking about Saylor's Creek today. But today on the channel, we have one of our subscribers, longtime subscribers, and from Books and Battlefields, he's got his own channel now. Charles, welcome to the stage.
Hey, Waffles, thanks for having me on. It's much appreciated.
Thanks. Well, so tell us a little bit about your channel so that people that are watching, if they're not sure or they haven't seen the channel before, maybe they'll get an introduction to what it is that you do.
Well, what I do on my channel is that I go to the battlefield. I will read passages from books because I'm not an expert on whatever battlefield I'm at. I have knowledge, but I believe the authors hold that knowledge. So I go there, read a few passages of where I'm at the battlefields, and try to give my take as well of the horrors as well as the bravery and camaraderie at these battlefields. Because as you said that when we met the one time, battlefields are hallowed grounds and they're sacred. They're not meant to be glorified. This is, where things took place that, death and gloom happened. So try to honor it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's 100% how I feel. I mean, it's one man's nightmare and another man's daydream is the way a battlefield is. So historians, the majority of the historians that write about it have never experienced anything like it, and those that have experienced it, they don't like to glorify it. So, so that opening clip we talked about from that video, we're talking about Saylor's Creek here, and this is at the end of the war. They're getting to the point now. Robert E. Lee's army has been pushed out of the trenches at Petersburg. And now they're fleeing and they are on the run. Have you ever been to Saylor's Creek before?
I have not, actually. I haven't done any of the Appomattox courthouse campaign at all in my travels. But Saylor's Creek is on there. Good.
Well, for all those that haven't seen Saylor's Creek before, you're taking this trip into no man's land, really. It's 360 is one of the main roads that runs through there. And then there's a lot of intersecting roads into the Saylor's Creek area, and it's all backcountry roads. You run out of signal real easy out there. But you get to these crossroads, these rundown buildings, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, is this beautiful field that takes you back in time. It just transports you back. And it's cow pasture, and it runs past this older house. And then the state park is out there, and they're the ones that operate this place. So the first thing that hits you about it is the preservation of this field, how it looks out there. And I'm going to put on a clip here about the battle preservation and how important this is, and we'll talk about that. So here's a good look at the terrain at Saylor's Creek. Rising up behind me here was that hill that I was standing on where you could see the Hillsman house off in the distance. And I'm on the trail that they have out here, and I'll flip back around towards where that house was that you could see earlier. And now all you can see is the trees. There is no way you can see anything beyond those trees right now. And even then, there's some depressions directly behind me. Hope you can see that. where the hills go up and then back down. So when troops are coming up across this creek and they're going over top of the hill where I'm at, there's still places where they can lay low and still not be seen by the enemy. But if you're standing on top of the hill right up here, you have the best vantage point possible. So for me, that's kind of highlighting, every time I go out to these fields, I like to talk about the importance of the American Battlefield Trust and then organizations like the Civil War Trails, because a lot of these places at one point in time are just simply farms. That's it. And old in the old days, the farms were just dirt plots of land, and then you get these larger stores like Walmart opening up, or these large now solar farms that are coming into these territories. And for them, land is land. It's a big land grab. They really do not care what happened to that land or what happened on that land. But these organizations like American Battlefield Trust help to preserve it so that or other organizations like these state parks and national parks can then turn this into an experience for people to go out to a field. So Charles, for you, when you go out to these fields yourself, describe the first time you went out to a Civil War battlefield, if you can, and what that meant to you going out there.
I think one of the battlefields I visited was the, the Bloody Angle, the Mule Shoe at Spotsylvania Courthouse for the first time.
Yeah.
It was a cold, dreary day, um, and it was quiet as ever. And I look around and I feel this, I felt the somberness and the weight of, the devastation and everything that took place while there. And for the trust and everybody else who's preserved it, I've been able to imagine wholly what took place there and with the markers and everything. And I've been able to just have a full grasp of of the battle. And it's very moving at the same time because I understand, the what took place. Sometimes it's hard to describe, but I'm sure we've all felt it going to these battlefields and taking a look around. It's beautiful in some areas, and it's hard to believe that happened there, the death and destruction.
Yeah.
But it's war. And another time when I went to, I know it's not Civil War, but recently when I visited Fort William Henry up in Lake George, that is a beautiful battlefield, and surrounded by the lake and the mountains.
Yeah.
And I felt the same way at Newmarket when I visited there. Just these beautiful landscapes, and to think that death happened there and that destruction, and especially with the VMI cadets at Newmarket and how young they were. When you get to know personally just these young men fighting for the cause of the Confederacy, and they come up and they fill in the gap in the hole, and they brave a charge at the Union line. It takes guts.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a feeling I can't get over every time I go, and it brings me back and wants to go to other ones to see.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's that juxtaposition. It's being out there in nature, seeing how beautiful this place is, and having that serenity that's all around you. And a lot of times, people that do not know loud noises like combat and do not know what it's like for people to experience stuff like that, when they get out there, the imagination starts to run wild. For me, the first battlefield was Cowpens Battlefield in South Carolina. That was really the first place I got to absorb and enjoy a battlefield for myself. And it was a time capsule. You go there and there's nothing but woods all around you, and you're going through a path, and then all of a sudden the woods open up to this big open plain, where this Revolutionary War battle happened. And by comparison, Revolutionary War battlefields were a skirmish compared to American Civil War battles. Um, Sailor's Creek, Bill asked about why some people call it Sailor's Creek, as in a sailor out on the ocean, instead of Sailor's Creek, the way it's spelled typically on the map. I'm not real sure about that. Probably because they want to spell it how they think it's correct. But yeah, definitely. A lot of people say that. A lot of people put it in their videos as Sailor, Sailor. I've done it myself, actually. But yes, it's definitely Saylors, Sailor's Creek.
And what's
Um,
funny, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what's funny
yeah,
is that even the American Battlefield Trust has it spelled differently as well.
yeah. No, there's multiple different spellings of it too. Like the modern day spelling is the way it's now spelled. But the old way was Saylors. The battlefield today out there at Sailor's Creek is one of the most preserved and most beautiful battlefields I think I have ever seen. And the craziest part about this place is hardly anybody goes to visit. And when you get out there, you're walking out there in this place, and you're maybe one of two or three people walking those trails. And depending on what time of year you get out there, you're going to get the exact same type of weather, the same type of terrain, the same type of muddy feet that those guys had when they were tromping on that land in April of 1865. So going back towards some of these videos that I have that we're going to highlight this with, let's talk about the opening of the battle here real quick. We'll go into. So I'm at a location called Holt's Corner right now. And out here at Holt's Corner, Sailor's Creek battle really started. General Crook's cavalry met Anderson's brigade out here, and Anderson was supposed to be headed south toward Rice's Station. But he ends up meeting that cavalry here, and he opened up a gap between him and the rest of the Confederates. From that point on April 6th, the fight would be on. After being attacked here and the cavalry swinging around between the gap, Anderson moves his men further south, and he ends up at Miller's Crossroads. He takes up a position over there, and Ewell would be right beside him on the left-hand side. But really the fight starts here at Holt's Corner, at this crossroads or intersection that's directly behind me. Right there. So Holt's Corner, this crossroads or intersection comes together, and if you're taking the Lee's retreat trail, you're actually coming from another direction where a church was, where they talk about North Carolinians actually being out there at one point in time trying to protect that rear guard, because coming in through that section, we're talking about a dogged pursuit in almost two different directions at this point. The Union Army is in hot pursuit of Lee's army, and they're trying to find the main body, and they're trying to attack at all angles. So as they're coming through, it's day after day, hour after hour, moment after moment. It's one attack after another. These guys are not able to get sleep. They are not able to get food. They've already had one unsuccessful attempt after another to replenish this army, and they're running on fumes at this point. So they come into that Holt's Corner, they get attacked, they get pushed back, and now there's this gap between two separate sections. And if you look at this map that's in the background of our video there, you can actually see the two separate sections in the background. The main section's up at the top right-hand corner of the background of our screen, and then the lower corner is the other portion, and there's a major gap that's in between. But Holt's Corner is this unassuming place where there used to be an old grocery store out there, a gas station, and now when you go out there, it's closed down. But the thing about battlefields is the majority of the time it's hard to piece it all together because we want to look at something as one thing, when actually it's multiple separate things. How about yourself? Whenever you get out to, for example, Gettysburg, how are you able to take in Gettysburg and be able to take in all the different pieces to understand how that battle operates?
Well, I mean, for the most part, I know the first day's battle is pretty direct.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you got the Confederates coming in from the northwest, But once they come through the town and the Union Army, the Army of the Potomac, comes up and finally groups together, and we got Governor K. Warren setting up the line from Little Round Top, and creates the fish hook, the famous fish hook everybody knows about.
Yeah.
I view it, at least with Gettysburg. I've said it before in one of my videos. Gettysburg reminds me of like a boxing match because Lee throws a right and a left hook, and you got to look at those two key components of the battle. We got the right hook with was at Longstreet. Longstreet goes up against the Union left, so that's one particular fight in that second day's battle. But you have a simultaneous left hook coming up at Culp's Hill, and the men there, the Union right, they hold strong because his name escapes my mind. Tells his men to hunker down and build some earthworks because he knows it's going to be like attacked, and he has that instinct to dig in and hold their ground. So you have both of those attacks happening simultaneously.
You're talking about up on Culp's Hill?
Yeah.
Pop Green?
Yes. So you got both of those happening at once, but when you're at different parts of the battle, so say I'm over at Little Round Top, Big Round Top, Devil's Den, the wheat field, all that going on because of Pickett.
Yeah.
And not Pickett. What's his name? Crazy guy. He.
I think that's all of them.
Yeah, pretty much. You have to be crazy, but he comes out and creates the salient. So that's in and of itself another part of the battle that happens.
Yeah.
And bloodshed at the wheat field, which I did recently, and the peach orchard, and Sickles, that's his name.
Yeah, Dan Sickles.
Sickles comes out and he forms a mule shoe. So I break it down into whatever's happening there. I like, for instance, when I went with my family last weekend, I was telling them what happened here while everything else was happening everywhere else. But when we got there to the next part of the battlefield, I would say, all right, while this is going on, that's happening, but this is where all this bloodshed happened. And I got the 20th Maine. They come down and charge with bayonets at the what are they, the Mississippians?
So Redoubt Productions just brings up a good point here. Colonel David Ireland held the extreme right with his 137th New York, and sadly he's not well remembered. 100% on that. He is not remembered the way he should be, and there's a lot of stories there at Culp's Hill with 137th New York as well. And I think I did a video on a couple of soldiers there not too long ago about that. How Sickles saved the second day. Bill Elrod says, "Have Waffles explain how Sickles saved the day on the second day." Yeah, he saved the day all right. So one of the neat things about going out to Gettysburg battlefields is there's professional guides that keep the story, and you can pay the fee to go have them bring you out to the field and maybe fill in the gap for you because it is a very large battlefield. And I did go out there a few times with a guide just to fill in the gap in some of those places. And no, Dan Sickles, if you're looking at it from Dan Sickles' perspective, then sure, Dan Sickles saved the day. But looking at the gap that he left there is pretty crazy. Question for Charles from Ann McGee. How do you decide which book to take to the battlefield, or is there any particular author or source you turn to over and over again?
For instance, I have to say, recently this week, I had the chance with my bookstore I work with, Second Time Books, here in New Jersey. They loaned me a book.
Yeah.
But every other time, it's been mainly like a book I've read, and it sometimes the books tell a different story, so I try to help tell the book story, or I just have a book and I take it. It's more or less on a whim.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's whatever the mood I'm in. Whatever. Like I have a book now for New Jersey at Gettysburg. I took with me. I was like, I'm going to use it, but I was like, nah, I'll save this for next time.
Yeah.
Um, and I have no particular authors. I do know who I should stay away from because I know some of them are more or less uh, what's the word, controversial.
Hmm.
Uh, but with the main authors, I go with whatever the national park suggests. So sometimes before I go, I'll get a hold of the battlefield and I talk to like an expert and say, hey, what book should I read? And they tell me a book. I did that with Richmond when I was down in Richmond this past couple months ago. You know, and I never read the book, but then I got a book and then I read it and I was like, wow, that's brilliant. And then everything connected with another book I read, and it was fairly interesting to say the least, especially between the Peninsula Campaign and Winfield Scott's Veracruz in the Mexican American War to
Yeah.
Mexico City. And McClellan was trying to redo that pretty much in his own sense,
Yeah.
young Napoleon, as he likes to be called.
Right.
So yeah, it's more or less just a whim for
Okay.
most.
So Buckeye Ranger says, I choose an overview or battlefield guide. The another one that tells the story reasonably well. Yeah, that's kind of what I do. I like to get any kind of battlefield operating guide that can take you point by point. And I don't stay away from any book. I read as many as I can get my hands on, even the ones that are controversial, because I want to I want to bring in all the opinions, and then I have the brain to make up my own assessment as to what is true and what's not true, and then try to put it out there as fairly as possible, so that I'm not using my opinions to sway people in one way or the other. But speaking of Gettysburg, it's funny that we would get off on the Gettysburg tangent. I got a little clip here that relates to Sailor's Creek.
There's a young man in the Confederate Army out here, and he's been fighting with them for a long time. He's earned the rank of sergeant. He's with an artillery unit. One of his most harrowing moments comes when he's in Gettysburg. He's fighting across from a peach orchard, and at the corner of that peach orchard stands a small house with a couple of elderly people in there and some youth. The people that are in that house are related to him. It's his parents. I'm talking about Sergeant Wentz. Sergeant Wentz joined the Confederate Army, and he traveled north to Gettysburg and is now firing artillery pieces towards his own home. Sergeant Wentz makes his way here to Sailor's Creek. This place would be the end of the fight for him.
Yeah, so I got cut off there, but that was the end of the fight for Sergeant Wentz. Sergeant Wentz gets captured at Sailor's Creek with that big melee that happens out there, and he ends up not being paroled until June of 1865, when the rest of his buddies get the parole at Appomattox just a week or two later there. Um, that whole story, I got introduced to that story thanks to one of my favorite authors and friends, Tom McMillan. He wrote a book called Gettysburg Rebels, and I can't praise that book enough. I put it out there constantly to people because it opens your mind up to the perspective of this isn't just a North versus South fight. Uh, we put that label on it. Even they put that label on it back in the 1800s because that was primarily what was fighting here. But Gettysburg had five sons go off to the South to make a life for themselves and eventually return back north to fight against the Union Army in their own hometown. And just thinking about the conflict of interests that are going on for these men as they're standing. As a matter of fact, Sergeant Wentz's cannons were aimed not only at his house, but sitting on the property that his father gave him, 2.5 acres of land, hoping to keep his son in Gettysburg and not have him just flee off to another state or town. It's just amazing to think about that. And these are the kind of stories that constantly come out of the American Civil War story that I like to look for when I go to these fields. I don't know about you, but that makes it more human for me. It makes it more relatable. Have you ever ran across a story like that, Charles?
Actually, I have, not in reading more or less, but more from what the tour guides have told me. Especially
Yeah.
like with Jenny Wade, she had I think a love interest
Okay.
in the army, and
Hmm.
she was waiting to get married by him. I believe this was a couple years ago, so it's escaped me. But I believe she did have a love interest fight, and then somebody else that she knew fought for the Confederacy. You know, they
Yeah.
both left town, like how you said. So that story you were telling me is very familiar. Um, the one I do know that I believe in the one book I did read, it was in Franklin. It was
Hmm.
the Franklin battlefield where uh, the young man died, I believe, in his own home at the Carter House, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. And not personal stories; they're in the books that I read. But that's the one that usually sticks out is the Carter House son who dies in his own home, or at least is mortally wounded yards from his house.
Yeah. So I noticed earlier somebody mentioned Medal of Honor recipients there at Sailor's Creek. There were some 50 flags, I believe, captured um, in that pursuit. And one of my favorite books just happens to be this series right here. And I think a lot of people grew up with this Time Life series. And in here, it talks about the deeds of valor rewarded. It says, during the one-sided fighting at Sailor's Creek on April 6th, federal soldiers seized 50 Confederate flags, earning for each captor a Medal of Honor, the Union's highest decoration for valor. Two soldiers demonstrated particular fortitude that day in depriving the enemy of their treasured colors. Private Charles A. Taggart of the 37th Massachusetts surprised a squad of Confederates. He fired into the midst, grabbed their banner, and raced toward the Union lines. Taggart's comrades thought that he was leading an enemy charge and shot at him, but he was only slightly wounded. And then, of course, one of my favorite stories coming out of that is Lieutenant Thomas W. Custer. So, as you're heading off the hill and you're going down towards Sailor's Creek, that little section in there is where Custer ends up capturing his second flag during that campaign. Just a day or so ago, he captured his first flag and receives a Medal of Honor for that. This time around, he's not so lucky. He ends up getting shot in the face and captures that second flag from the enemy hands. And as he's going back to tell his brother that he captured this flag, his brother's telling him, "You need to go back behind the lines and get seen." And he's refusing to go back. George Custer ends up having to order him back and then has to have him drugged back and told him that he was going to send him before a courts martial if he didn't go back to get seen for his wounds. It's one of the most amazing stories ever out there on Sailor's Creek.
I
What's
don't
your
think
uh, what's your thoughts on the Medal of Honor during the American Civil War?
um, uh, before I talk about that guy probably has to be just as crazy as Sickles, unless he had a whole lot of adrenaline running through him for that. Holy heck!
Oh yeah.
But the Medal of Honor, uh, back in the Civil War when it first came around, I knew at least the stipulations to be earned. Nonetheless, at the time, they were very strict. You had to have bravery and courage and uh, everything else that comes with honor and bravery. Uh, charging and getting colors is one of them. I remember, and that is something that you are going to become a target. To if men see you taking their colors, that's like one of the highest honors that a Civil War regiment can grab, and also a very opposite effect on the regiment you're taking it from.
Mm-hmm.
So to demoralize a regiment by taking their colors, earn the Medal of Honor, and justly so. I mean, if you could demoralize a whole regiment and get them to surrender, that takes a lot of guts, bravery, and that's where we see a lot of the Medal of Honor recipients get them. I remember the USCT the 14 U.S. colored troops in the new Battle of Newmarket Heights.
Yeah.
They earned the Medal of Honor by storming the redoubts there, I believe. I don't think it was taking the colors, correct?
No, there was
So
a lot of them that took colors.
So they did take the colors, but they still bravery,
Yeah.
still there. I will never say anything about negatively about how people earn that medal, any medal in general. So it takes guts and courage. So whatever recipients, whatever the stipulations were that they received them, be it stealing the colors and just charging at a force, that let them have it.
Yeah, no, and I've had a lot of people get into my comment sections and actually denigrate people from the Civil War that took colors and got a Medal of Honor, as if that wasn't brave, or as if they didn't do as much as people from World War One or World War Two. Now, granted, it's become more stringent over time, and the vast majority of Medal of Honor recipients are dead in combat. But the reason why it was so important at that time is those colors are the marking position of those lines. And in order to take a flag from a company or anybody, you're going to have to go up to the lines of people. You're going to have hand to hand combat. You're going to have to take it out of the hands of another man that wants you dead just as much as you want to kill him. And that, in and of itself, is a particularly dangerous situation because you're not just standing back in the distance and waiting for that thing to drop on the ground. You're going up there and getting it. And that man's not going to let you take those colors because if he loses those colors, that's a bad day for him. So,
And let's not forget. Sorry, let's not forget that staff can be used as a weapon too. It's not like he's just sitting there holding it, just like, yeah, come get it and just play, capture the flag. It's more like beating you with it because there's a pummel at the end of it, ain't it?
Personal courage under fire. That's right. Personal courage under fire, 100%. All right, let me get to another clip here. See what we got from Sailor's Creek. Another. Oh, here we go. Here's a pretty good one there. We'll talk about Elijah Hunt Rhodes.
Now, Elijah Hunt Rhodes took a real famous photograph with all of his officers in his unit with 2nd Rhode Island. And in that picture, his best friend can be seen in the background. He's a real tall man. During that picture, and just before the battle, he tells Elijah, the next big battle we're in, if we win, the war may be over and we can go home. Well, his friend dies here at Sailor's Creek.
To me, that's a gut-wrenching story. Every time I read about it, and that story is actually covered in the book that I just displayed. This man is sitting around a campfire with Elijah, and these guys have gone through the Civil War together for a very long time, and they've been fighting up in the ranks to try to win this war. And as they're sitting around this campfire together and talking and having soldier talk like old soldiers would do, he's seeing the end of the road. He's seeing victory ahead, and he's pretty sure that they're going to win this war. And they're getting excited about this stuff. They're getting ready to be victorious and then make it end. They don't want this to continue. They don't want to have to fight anymore. They're almost there. They're at the finish line, and they may make it out of this thing without being dead. And he tells his buddy, if we win this next battle, this might be the end. And they're celebrating together and they're having a good time. And then that very next battle, that big battle, Sailor's Creek, and he ends up losing his life out there. It's just absolutely gut-wrenching to think of something like that. And there's even stories from Sailor's Creek where the news travels back slow to the people back home. And there's Southern soldiers on the other side, and their families are finding out after Appomattox that Appomattox is done, and that's the end of the Army in Northern Virginia. And they're excited, thinking that their sons are coming home. And it's not until a week or two later that they find out that their son actually died in Appomattox. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, the news didn't travel as fast as it could have. Yes, we had the telegraph, but that was more or less between the armies, not from the soldiers. So it is gut wrenching, and I remember reading somewhere that it was probably in my patent book I'm reading that one of the gentlemen said, we're close to winning this war, and then same thing happens. Guy gets killed by overshot artillery shell. He wasn't even near battle during the taking of the Continental Peninsula. And overshot artillery shell hits him and kills him. And he's like, we weren't even close to battle. So,
yeah, absolutely. So this Sailor's Creek, the terrain, if you've never been there before, you start on a level playing field, then you go downhill, and then the creek runs in the middle of this one small portion of the field that's preserved, and then it runs right back uphill. If you're taking it on foot and you go up that hill, you start to realize all of a sudden where Wheaton's men's coming from. You can look across the other side and see where the Confederate soldiers are on that other side. But once you get down to the hill and you're going through those woods and across that creek, number one, the banks on that creek are actually a lot steeper than you thought they would be. It's a small creek, but the bank is pretty steep. And then coming back across the other side, you're going up a steep hill right into a fortified location where these soldiers have put fence lines and dug up dirt and everything that they could rapidly in order to protect themselves. But also from the Confederates' vantage point, you're not able to see the soldiers once they get to a certain point. And I got a clip here that's going to kind of highlight a little bit of that. So we'll put that on here real quick.
Now, out here at Sailor's Creek, this is one of the rare places where restoration is worked out, and the advantage is to the person that comes out here. Minus the road in the background where the cars drive past, it's kind of easy to put yourself in that place at that time. And behind me there's the Hillsman house, and you can see clear down to the tree line there where the creek is, and up on the other side where the Hillsman house is, where the Union soldiers would have been forming and getting ready for battle. Some of the deadliest combat that happened out here actually happened in this location on this field.
So as you can see down across there, you see that tree line that runs, and then the Hillsman house sits up on the other side. Well, as those soldiers are coming down through there, they're coming back up towards that height where I'm at. And the artillery is sitting in that position where I'm standing and firing down over top of their own soldiers into that ravine, that gully where those Union soldiers are coming from. The terrain out there, I can't really capture it in words. Maybe if you think about Gettysburg and you think about the water courses that run through there, it's similar to that, especially going up towards Culp's Hill. It's not quite as high, but that's kind of the same terrain there. Topography. What have you noticed about topography that kind of captures your imagination?
Oh, with topography, I actually just tried my best to run up it, and especially those kind of situations if I could. One of the things I remember as you talk about, it goes right down into a ravine.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a bit like, if you've never been there, or if you have, Harper's Ferry.
Yeah.
The Harper's Ferry National Battlefield at what was it, Loudon Heights, which was the lower of the heights, because watch a lot of Dennis Fry's, Convergence. You got Marie's Heights, you had Maryland Heights, and they had Loudon Heights. I'm sorry, Mary's Heights, I believe. Mary's Heights, and you had Stonewall Jackson in the rear, who came up, and he did the nighttime assault. I remember looking down at that really steep incline plane,
Yeah.
and thinking, even if I was in shape, because I know I'm not, that would be very difficult. So doing that nighttime raid and nighttime attack and assault would actually help benefit. And but I remember also at Antietam, that same trip, the rolling hills, how they came through the cornfield, if I'm not mistaken, the Union did, and they would charge, but they would disappear and then come back up like right in your face.
Yeah, Miller's cornfield. Yeah, that was a back and forth action. That's Confederate and the Union soldiers coming out of there at the same time. That's I've actually been out there at Antietam when the corn was growing and walked through those fields, and it's very easy to see how that could happen. But also back in those days too, the corn was much shorter.
Yeah.
It's not as tall as it is now, but yeah, that topography is the most important part. And um,
Because it'll
Buckeye
really
Ranger
throw
says
you off.
topography is an art that every soldier needs to understand. 100% is an art that every soldier needs to understand. And even sailors out there on those rivers, the James River particularly, the topography was extremely important to the sailors too. They were going up and down the rivers in order to ascertain where their ships needed to set in order to fire into the land there. And another situation that really bothers the heck out of me was Malvern Hill. Um, you have an army as large as that army is sitting in the position that it's in, and it's already defeated the Confederates there at Malvern Hill, and you have a river with boats and guns just raring to go. And you're still going to back out of there. You're going to end up going back down the river. I mean, I just don't get what McClellan was doing during that. But that's my rant for the day.
Yeah, I can agree. I can see why everybody was getting frustrated with him.
Yeah.
I'll leave that there too. Read the book.
So, last clip I'm going to show is talking about the Long March to Sailor's Creek. And it kind of gives an idea as to why this is such an overwhelming Union victory. This isn't 5-1 odds where the Union has thrown its entire army at these guys. These guys are still they still got a lot of fight in them, but these Confederate soldiers, when they get to this point, they're literally running on fumes, and a lot of them are before they get to this point. There was a battle that happened on the outskirts of Petersburg that they can be heard by the Union soldiers arguing with each other as to whether or not they still need to fight, whether or not they should just give up, because what's it going to do us any good anyways? We've been doing this for months, and they're fighting with each other, and it's so audible it can be heard above the sounds of battle. So we'll go right into that clip.
Lee's men march all day April 5th. They march all night. They're marching in a heavy rain. And they can't seem to get any rest. The fight to survive is real. There are men that fall asleep while marching and march right out of the path and fall off the side of the road. There are men that straggle off for food and get captured. One soldier in the United States Army said that at that point in time, there were so many Confederates taken prisoner that they could count them by the thousands.
So there's a beautiful Sailor's Creek there in that video. I made sure to save that for last so we could get Sailor's Creek in there. So some of the stories that came out of there, the writing that came out of there, talking about the long march, the difficulties in the being tired, and even one soldier from the Confederate Army talked about his difficulties of marching on an empty stomach with bare feet and killing himself for 4 years, and in the end, all for nothing. And he said, I'll be damned if I ever love a country again." And he was talking about his position with falling in love with the idea of having a country for the South. That was his idea of patriotism. And he fell out of love with that idea after those years of combat and going on that long march and being captured at Sailor's Creek. It's just an amazing statement coming from a soldier like that. And I think the difficulties of that march, really, it's underestimated. And the size of the army coming out of Petersburg at that time, going into that long march, was actually pretty sizable. They had a large army in Petersburg in those trenches. And by the time they get to Appomattox, that army has whittled down so much that there's not even a force to be able to put up a fight. So, going into the future here, we got some videos coming up on our channel. We're going to go into part 2 of Manassas, where we actually dig deeper into the second Manassas portion, and we uncover a lot of different locations out there. I did have one viewer that was upset with me because I used the word secret in my title. I don't know why people get twisted around that stuff, but uncovering the secrets for the people out there that have not been to Manassas. What do you got going on, Charles, in the future?
What I got going on right now is I have a few trips planned out. My wife and I we sit there and we plan our trips according to most of my history stuff, and then whatever happens after that is how it works. Today I'm going to be going along with my cooking videos or lack thereof. I got a lot of attention on making hardtack for the first time, so I have a taste for war. It's a it talks about the culinary foods of the blue and the gray.
Mm-hmm.
So this time I'm going to be making I believe I'm going to be making something with cornmeal, something easy for me to eat, and if I ruin it, it's not going to cost so much.
There you go.
I just want to experience at least the historical types of food that will come along, not come along, but the types of food that the soldiers ate at the time. And then since I'm in New Jersey, I do plan on doing a lot of 250th or just do Revolutionary War battlefields. And since I'm near the Chesapeake area, I might do some War of 1812 because that has piqued my interest as well. And there's some books out there I've read. There's some places out there I've read about in the books, like the Battle of Wyoming. I plan on visiting there. I plan on going to New London and Groton up in Connecticut, where it was one of Benedict Arnold's last battles. I have a whole thing planned out. I gotta talk to the wife, and I have all these books with me in my study that I have for my references. And if I don't have a book, I know where I can go.
Okay, absolutely, 100%. Well, we appreciate you popping in on the channel here. Somebody said they just recently joined the American Battlefield Trust. We appreciate you for doing that. As YouTube historians, I guess you could say, and I know the American Battlefield Trust definitely appreciates you joining and adding your hat into the ring for that. Every little dollar counts. And what these guys have been doing lately is absolutely amazing. The type of work that they're doing to preserve these battlefields and to prepare these fields, and even American Revolutionary War battlefields, they're working hard to capture as much of that as they can too. Here pretty soon, just so you know, we did a video not too long ago on a man named Dennis's property out in Spotsylvania, and he was concerned about his property getting turned over into the wrong hands once he's no longer there, and he wanted to get that land preserved. Well, there's some updates coming here soon, and I hope that I'm able to speak on it. I can't say anything about it now, but as soon as I am able to, we will see if we can't get a video with the updates on that, and we'll talk about what's coming in the future. We appreciate everybody out there tuning in, subscribing, and commenting on all the videos, and you keep these types of channels alive. Go over there and check out Books and Battlefields and see what he's got going on here in the future.
And thank you for having me, Waffles. I greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Charles. We appreciate you. And till next time.
Till next time. All
right.
See you, everybody.
I couldn't think of a better place to end this video than right here in the middle of the woods, the Battle of the Wilderness, at the hotly contested Brocken Plank Road, Orange Plank Road. Not too far in that direction, Longstreet's wounded. Right here where I'm at right now is a place where men like Wadsworth and Hayes end up losing their lives. Families lose loved ones. Soldiers burn to death in these fields around me here. If you'll let these fields do it, they'll touch your soul.